mother of three, survivor, and a voice for those who've been silenced. This podcast is my fight to launch truth. Back at a system that broke me. Every survivor listening, you are not alone. I'm Manelick. Welcome to the Trebuchet.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Trebuchet Podcast. Oh, man. This is the one. This is the VIP interview. And as you can see, we really splurged on the scenery today. But this is the man, the myth, the legend. I mentioned him in season 1, and he's here now. We're just materializing things into our life. Okay. Anyways, without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Doug Lane. Okay, Doug. Welcome.
Well, I certainly hope I live up to the expectations with an intro like that.
So everybody, we're here documenting survivors' journeys for season 2 of the Trebuchet, which is about the DOJ. So season 1, as you know, is about the DOD, which is the Department of Defense, which now they're calling it the Department of War.
Right.
Since when? So like a recent?
Yes.
Are they redoing all of their insignia and...
officially, no. The official answer is, well, it's more of a nickname, right? However, it is now Department of War.mil.
Okay, yeah.
It's not DOD.mil, it's DOW.mil, right? And then the website is DOW, all that. I was talking to a 2-star the other day, and he said something about, we're the Department of War now. Yes, sir.
It's an interesting rebrand. So the Department of Defense, so anytime I go, it's like, well, it's little me versus the DOD, which is like little me versus the DOW doesn't really, it's like, it's not an alliteration, but the Department of Defense is the cabinet that's responsible for our, defending our nation, defending our assets and at home and abroad. And I guess the rebrand is like, we're not on defense, we're on offense. Right. So we're like, because like, if you're not, like, what is that department all about? War. Right. I mean, it's like the whole point is to be prepared for war. And so they've changed the name, and I don't necessarily know that it's like a threat. I think it's more like Teddy Roosevelt.
They changed the name back. It was the Department of War for 100+ years.
Really?
Department of Defense happened in, I think, after World War II. I don't remember precisely.
And then it went back. You know what? I should have known that because I was World War I historian.
Right.
We didn't hire very good.
World War I, that was all Department of War.
It was Department of War.
And at the time, the government caught a lot of grief for that because Orwell's 1984 had just come out. And so, suddenly this is no longer the Department of War, we're the Department of Defense. And it was seen as government doublespeak. So the idea that they're going back to calling it the Department of War doesn't bother me as much as it could. It's less of a rebrand and more of a, hey, we're moving it down. Give me back to what we called it originally.
Sorry, there we go. That's interesting. Yeah, my take on it was like, it's kind of Teddy Roosevelt. Speak softly and carry a big stick. It's like, hey, we got the Department of War now. Don't fuck around. Or FAFO. That's what they should have named it. FAFO. Fuck around, find out.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. President, I am petitioning now. FAFO. You guys, you missed a critical, that would have been, damn. That's what, yeah, right? Okay. Anyways, I digress. So you and I met. I was employed by the U.S. Army Center of Military History. So this is one of my biggest flexes. And everybody goes like, aren't you scared? You're like whistleblowing about the military. Oh, wait. Before we get started, I for our meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. For this office meeting. So if you need to start at any point, I guess standing there. Still a mom. But let's see, what year was it? 2015?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2016. I had Everly 2016. And then I was still nursing when I started the job. Came in and interviewed, and another military wife, another FAO wife, her name is Joanna Lane. Joanna Lane, I mentioned you in season 1. If you want to come on, season 12, come on in. And to finish up that story, Department of War was season 1, Department of Justice is season 2, and we're just going to keep on knocking them down until we get through all. And then we're just auditing, right? We're not here to give our opinion, although I do it a lot. But it's just like an asshole. Everybody's got one. So anything I do on the internet is just for entertainment purposes. And if anything comes of it, awesome. And again, as we always give the disclaimer on season 1, season 2, this is a show about Bigfoot. So for legal purposes, we are always looking for Bigfoot. Anything else we talk about is just chatter, right? Just idle chatter.
I found one.
Did you? Wait. I found one.
Oh, well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
There you go. Okay, so anyways, I had I'd heard about the job from Joanna Lane. Joanna Lane was like, oh, you'd be perfect for this. I'm going overseas. And then I applied. And then I literally did not think I'd get the job. I was like, this is way too big of a job. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And you interviewed me. And I remember thinking, you know what? Even if I just get to like get dressed, do my hair, look pretty, and go in and talk to adults today, and I don't have to change like a diaper. Like I get to change one less diaper. That will be an awesome day.
That's a win.
Yeah. And that was like the minimum like threshold. So I go in for the interview. What were your first thoughts?
So what I was looking for was somebody who could carry the mission forward with the understanding of what the standards of learning were for the education for a curriculum. So it was somebody with a firm grounding in this is how you build a curriculum for middle school, high school, and some reasonable passion for the topic, right? Because Dr. Villard, if you're listening,
Dr. Villard.
So looking for somebody to pair with the Army historian who is putting together this World War I curriculum. And he's a personality, right? He's a bit of a force of nature. And you and I sat down. I said hello. You talked for about an hour and 5 minutes. In my head, I had hired you after about minute 25. And the rest is history, quite literally.
The only person I've met that talks more than me is Stephanie, and I love it because I just go, okay, go. And then I get to just be in like neutral.
Right.
So nice. I love her.
Sure. Right.
That's so funny. You're like, okay, she can match Dr. Millard.
Right. That was the primary.
That was it. I came home from that interview and I thought I nailed it, but I still didn't think I did the job because it was just such a big kid job. And it was almost like it had been built for me. It's like, right. Building a digital curriculum on World War I. And this was pre-pandemic. This is before people were teleworking. This is before, remote education was big. But I had written my master's thesis, like the last chapter on that. And I came home from the interview and my ex-husband goes, well, how did it go? What do you think? And I was like, I don't know. I think you gave me a salary range and he goes, well, what is? And I said, between 45 and 55. And he goes, okay. I was like, yeah, that's really good. He's like, yeah, but 45, 55, what? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, a month, an hour, a salary, a year, what? I was like, I don't know. I was like, it just sounded like so much more money than I've ever made teaching. So I just said yes. I was like, well, we'll see. And then, and then it's, comes out in the wash. But it was just such a pleasure. And I still can't believe that I was paid by the U.S. Army, by the Department of Defense, because technically it was a contract. So it was like, that's where the funding came through. Right. And I got to go to, these museums and just all these places. And it was just like a historian. It was like a nerd's dream. I get to like build content and all that. So, and then you and I have stayed in touch ever since.
That was a terrific contract for a lot of folks for similar reasons. We wound up doing artifact management and, say, all right, this is an M&M packet that the French would have carried or that American troops would have carried in France in World War I. And we had folks whose job it was to weigh the artifact, take 16 pictures of it, index, what does it say? Where did we get it? Yeah. What's the provenance on it? And then accession it into the IT system for Army Museum Information System that we were also running at the time. And of course, these folks are history majors.
Yeah.
Right? It was who are just absolutely thrilled to have to not be working at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was probably the most interesting job that I've ever had. One of the more interesting contracts I've ever been on.
It was cool.
Pretty fair.
But there's like monument men, real life. Like I think her name was Shannon. Is that her name? She's like one of the historians. Or an editor, Shannon.
Yeah.
She comes in, she's like, oh, I love the smell of microfleece. I was like, but I was like, that's such a historian thing to say, because things like that, you like are walking into an archive and you're like, oh, this is old, and it's just there's something there. And so, I mean, in all like, that's kind of what this podcast is. We're preserving the record. It's like, hey, let's just what is the record? What are the facts? There's no judgment. There's no fun. There's no money coming into this that is like editing what we say.
Right.
And that's what's so cool is like, we're just here to put it out and adjudicate it in the comments. Really, that's what I say. I'm like, adjudicate it in the comments. Like, fight it out down there.
So I wasn't clear on that. So Bigfoot is not funding you.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, but the Bigfoot erotica is.
Stamp.
That's like, because you asked me earlier, you go, so just wondering, how are you floating this operation? I was like, I'm sleeping with people, Doug. I'll answer the question right up front. Yeah, it's the sex work. You're like, I did hear you had an OnlyFans. I told you, I did tell you that, right? Okay, so that started mostly as a joke. So, okay, blah, 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 blah. So work, right? Doug, you and I stayed in touch all these years. And when I went to Africa, I was giving you guys updates on like, there are fruit bats the size of like pterodactyls flying. I'm like terrified to go outside at night. And then we had some like anthrax math that we had to do before we got there, which was how many alligators or how many crocodiles does it take to eat 10 hippos that have been staked to the side of the river so that the village, townspeople don't get anthrax poisoning from eating the dead hippo carcasses that are going to wash down the river, which the answer is 100. But I joked because it was like an SAT question. And I was like, you were like, Autumn, this is Africa math. And I'm like, I'm not prepared for Africa math. But did you know that anthrax is a naturally occurring spore?
Okay.
And it's like rampant down there. And that's why these hippos were eating anthrax, dying, and then floating down the river and infecting the water supply. Yeah. And they couldn't pull them all the way out. So what they were doing was like staking them to the side of the river so that when the water went down, when the water receded, all these crocodiles will go up and then eat that. And then what do you have? When you get rid of one dead hippo, you then have
infected alligators.
Exactly. And then those were washing down, but I don't think they were being eaten because they were crocodiles. So it's like, okay, well, and now what do you do with 100, carcasses? And say, okay, well, whatever. Nature worked itself out, but that was the joke. So I kept you abreast of what was going on. When I moved to DC, did I tell you that Dan and I kind of alluded to the fact that my ex-husband and I were kind of having a separation, or you at least knew that something was...
Not much.
No?
I mean, no, not until you were back. We met for donuts, I think. And you started giving me some of this. And that's actually been one of the... I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about it for longer than you can guess. One of the things that I kind of kick myself about, not a lot, and I'll get into that. I need to set this up, is that all this is going on while you were working for me. And I was clueless, right? I've been managing projects and people for a long time, since the 90s, which bothers me to say that. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but for a long time. And I'm pretty good at it. And over time, I've gotten better at the soft skills, right? As they call them, in terms of, dealing with people. And a lot of that is just, my life experiences. I've gotten a little polished and, had some of the sharp edges worn down, office experiences and life experiences. And at the same time, this is the second part of the setup for that question, is next year, my folks are going to will have their 60th wedding anniversary. Julia and I will be married for 35 years next year. I I don't have a frame of reference for what an unhappy household looks like. I have a lot of life experiences. That isn't one of them. And so what I've been wondering is, what are the things that I could have looked for that I could reasonably have, and this is hard also, because, this will surprise you, as a male boss, you don't just ask your female employees, "Hey, baby, is your husband treating you all right?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? To the point of, I don't know if you remember the details of that interview.
I talked a lot.
You get training in some of this. I get some training in some of this. We're in the big conference room, and I make sure that you are A, closer to the door, and B, I'm not obstructing your path to the door. Right? It's like as non-threatening as possible.
Yeah.
And to make sure that you have a sense that this is a safe space and that you can fucking leave if you want to.
Who trained you on that? The Army?
No.
Oh, the company.
Yeah.
My brothers. Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm like, the Department of War is definitely not, because my ass was blocking doors and keeping me locked up, and definitely not what they're trained to do. Well, actually, no, that is what they're trained to do, is the service member, but not like in your home, to an enemy, to ISIS, to Taliban, right? Yeah.
Right. And so I've been kind of wondering how would one put together maybe something like a curriculum for HR people and management courses, where you could say, hey, here are maybe there patterns of behavior, or some kind of sign signal that would give me a hint that, hey, maybe you ought to check in with the employee and say, not hey, but is your husband treating you?
Yeah.
But is everything okay at home?
Yeah.
Like, just to know, to sort of ask.
To ask, yeah.
Because outside of, something like that, certainly most people in a management position, you're trained not to, right?
Yeah.
It's not my business.
Yeah.
Right? And if the employee, if there's no, kind of obvious signs of, problematic work performance, it's not impacting the work, and it never impacted your work.
No. That's what my doctor said, because like my ex tried to criminalize me, then he tried to pathologize me, and then tried to criminalize me again. And my doctor said, he goes, have your children ever had any behavioral issues, ever been in any kind of any? And I said, no, never. And I'm their primary care provider. Like I'm the mama. Like, and he goes, okay, so children have no issues. And then he goes, and how has your work been? I was like, honestly, up until this year, just going better. But then back. Like anytime I would make too much progress, he would make sure that I didn't make any more progress. And I said, but I still, by the grace of God, managed to like keep, going in my career, despite his career being like the lead, because he's a military officer. So for 17 years, it was always like just whatever was in service with him. But right. I always tried to keep a center, I always tried to keep a career, because I grew up in domestic violence. And my mom said, never depend on a man and get your education. And so, she's a doctor. And so she was the provider for our family. So she always kind of had that thing, but that didn't keep her from getting her ass beat at home. She's like, sorry, it'd be so great. But like, but then my own mother told me to stay in my marriage because it wasn't that bad. So I'm like, okay, but like,
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. Like, thanks, Dad. But it's so common in these situations, and I'm seeing like an underlying pattern of like these mothers who are like, come on, it's not that bad. And, like an old school mentality. But to get back to your point, of like my job performance, and that's what the doctor said. And he goes, so you're like, you would be having like problems at work and things like that. And it really wasn't until I started like working at Pebble, and I was teaching full time, and I was had an admin job, but I had to, because I was trying to make as much money as I could to fight for my kids. And but to your point, I think that the earliest signs of it were just starting to show. And so so you don't have to waste any of your time and energy thinking about it. There wasn't anything back then that would have been worthy of, like, it wasn't newsworthy. I wasn't in crisis yet. I was just sort of becoming aware of the fact that I needed that job for financial independence. And that would be the the earliest indicator is, how does your employee, like, if I could go back to my 21-year-old self, and my sister-in-law did this with my ex with my brother, and that's why I know she, like, when she threatens to leave, or when she says, if you don't get sober, like, I'm going, which, like, is that my business to tell the world? No. But at the same time, everybody has made choices in how this chapter has played out. And I told them all, I was like, guys, I'm gonna tell the world when the day is right, when the time is like, if I don't die in the process, the truth will come out. So just let's heal this as a family. And they chose not to. So now I'm just like, hey, you made choices that hurt my kids. And as they say, hell hath no fury like a mighty sworn.
Right.
So my mama, that's the guy being like, shh, speak softly. Okay, so
I'm sure it'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll fit. But I don't think that there was anything that you could have done back then, because I was just starting to see the signs. And we had come back I had caught him in South America with an embassy staff member. And there were rumors going around the embassy. And had this staff member been literally anybody else, I would have caught hands. Like if it was like some chick, I don't like, boom, let's go. But it was a different situation. And so which I told you, right? I've told you also, okay. I'm like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I was just like, hey, like, I'm embarrassed. And, there was some excusive behavior, but the thing that came back was, you never know where the intel's going to come from. Because I was like, why are you having closed door meetings like with somebody after hours? It's like weird and makes me uncomfortable, especially because this person's position is like of so much lower stature.
Right.
It's like janitor. Like, why you have the janitor in your office after hours? Like that doesn't. He's like, well, you never know where the intel's going to come from. And I was like, okay. And then when we got to DC and we had our second daughter, and I said, when we get back to the States, I need you to stop talking to this person because it makes you really uncomfortable. And if the situation was even a little bit different, I would honestly feel like super betrayed, and like it just is weirding me out. So, and there's a lot of text messages and like things that were just, and I saw it with my own eyes. I said, so I just need you to cut that off, right? And I will answer your question because this answers your question, like the financial aspect of it, because I was financially dependent on him. I got married at 21. I put myself through grad school. I used an Army, my CAA, scholarship, which I think is so cool that I used an Army scholarship, a Department of Defense scholarship to get my teaching degree, part of it, because I don't have funded like a quarter of it. And then I taught all the way through, right, which is part of that. My mom said, like, never depend on a man. So he didn't pay for my grad school. The Army, financed a portion of it. And I kind of feel like my job at SAIC was like me or, the department or,
right.
What is it? UN Department of, where did we work? U.S. Army Center on Military History, CMH. I feel like my CMH job was like me paying it back to the military. Like that was my service, right? Even though technically being a military wife is a job of service.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
and we don't compensate them. And I think that that's going to be something that I start to advocate for is like you cannot build something on the back of an uncompensated workforce. So in the military, we all, mostly wives, some husbands, stay home so that your fighting force can be deployable pretty much at any time, because there's not enough spaces in the center for the CDC. Part of the reason why I've had to telework was because my daughter didn't have space, and you were so good about helping me move Everly into daycare. And I was like, okay, well, I only have 3 hours this week, and then I can come in, I can use all 6 hours. And you're like, how about this? You want to try teleworking? I was like, that'd be great.
Right.
And I joked because it was like, I was in that little, there were so few desks, and it just worked out for everybody. And plus I know that like when I was in there on Thursdays, the guys were like, shit, we can't fart in here. Like it's Thursday. Like I gotta hold my gas. And I could tell that they were too, right? I like could feel their energy. They're like, like they enjoyed having me, but at the same time they were like,
they enjoyed having you.
Yeah. Well, and plus on Thursdays I'd come in and I would hardly work. I just talk to everybody all day, but that is working, and talking to your colleagues and getting work done like that. But anyways, okay, so we come back from South America, and I had said, when we come back, I don't want you talking to this person. So we come back and it's October. So he is not only not in the same job that he was in Paraguay, which was an embassy. He's a foreign for an area officer in Paraguay and Asuncion. And then he was not only doing that, he was in grad school. So he wasn't even like on assignment. The Army was paying for him to go to grad school. But, and sadly, I'm seeing this pattern so much because like if it was just my spouse, I'd be like really bummed. But there's so many other spouses that have come forward. Like even a lady last night was telling me about her ex, who's a lieutenant colonel, who did this to her. And he's down at Belfar. And I'm like, give me his name, give me his information. Not that it's going to make a difference, but because the military's they just took, you Department of War, fuck off. Like I'm coming for you. Like I'm actually coming for you because how dare you do this to military spouses? But beyond that, how dare you do this to the American public who's literally paying these men to harm women? So I see you and I'm done. Pete Hegseth, we're gonna have a conversation. Pete Hegseth actually was accused of something in Monterey County, and a DA who's pressed charges against me as a victim of assault. And she actually sits on the board of the Monterey Rape Crisis Center. Pressed charges against me, but failed to press charges against somebody who paid a woman $50,000. Nothing screams innocent like a payoff, right?
Right.
Anyways, a preemptive payoff because you wanted a political career. But I don't know, Pete, come on. Come sit down and we'll talk about it. Just kidding. I'll edit that. Okay, so anyways, where were we? Come home. I open the laptop. I'm like 6 months pregnant, and there's this person on a Facebook page. I was like, man, I did not need to open this up and see somebody in their underwear. That's not, whatever in the messages.
There's the janitor.
There you go. There's a janitor in the undies, and open it up, and because we're sharing a computer. I say, hey, what's going on here? Like, you're not even still in that position. He's like, oh, well, you can see I'm not saying anything back. And I'm like, you're laughing and you're like, haha, oh, that's nice. I'm like, you're not shutting it down. So like, there was always that level of like plausible deniability. But later when I actually had like a person at church, this metaphysical church that he took me to, which said he like tried to claim I was crazy and like on the stand be like, do you talk to dead people? I'm like, you know what? Even if I do, it's my First Amendment right? Like freedom of religion. So what? And like everybody, we all are allowed to have our own thing, right? But they try to use that to make you look crazy. And they're like, would you talk to dead people? I'm like, doesn't any Christian? Isn't that the whole thing? Isn't that what prayer is? Is that talking to Jesus? Is it talking to Mary? I got smart, and I've actually done this now twice. Once under oath on a stand, and once in a deposition. They're like, do you believe that you could talk to dead people? I'm like, well, first of all, if you're referring to I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then we get to the point where I go, oh, you're talking about my YouTube channel? Okay, well, did you see the disclaimer that that's all for entertainment? If it's not for education, it's just for entertainment. So it's just something I said on the internet one time. And they're like, and I said, and then they're like, but do you believe that you could talk? I'm like, I also look for Bigfoot. So,
right.
But and then I also do this. Like, you can be multifaceted and still have a brain. I was going to make a dirty joke about BDSM, but I was like, you still like, I can't do that. Point of the story is,
this is a safe space.
This is a safe space. Oh my gosh, I'll tell you about that later. It's the psyche val where a doctor said that I didn't know that, she goes, so I'm not going to deem it sexual assault because she was in a BDSM relationship. She just didn't know. Isn't that part of the whole fucking thing?
That is
consent,
right? Consent and yeah,
you got to know what it is.
Safe words.
You got to know what the thing is to be able to consent to it. I was like, I don't know what that is, and she's like, well, that's what you were into. I was like, I wasn't fucking into it. That's what he was into. Like, that's what you don't get to put that on me.
Right.
And now that I've like gone through so much therapy, so much trauma informed therapy, and like I'm divorced now, and I'm in that next chapter of dating and understanding. I'm like, wow, like it's just such an eye opener. So, anyways, I don't think you could have seen it because we got back to the States. I said, hey, you can't talk to this person, and he's like, then that's when he started to go really like underground. And the next time I caught him was when he was in Vegas, and this is when I was at CMH. And I don't know that you guys would have like even seen anything because I was so good at hiding it.
Right.
Like I'd grown up hiding it. And we'd always been taught, don't tell anybody outside of the house. And my mom was a doctor. And so I didn't have a pediatrician. And anytime I did, one time in middle school, I tried to cry out. It was in the hospital, and I tried to cry out. And my mom let my stepdad be the one to pick me up from the hospital, who like, he wasn't even like on any of my discharge papers. Like, I don't understand how like a random stranger, like literally my mom's boyfriend, was able to pick me up. So that was my message. Like, they just sent your assailant like to pick you up from the hospital. You think somebody's going to help you? Like, no, kid. Like, not. So you couldn't have seen it in my case. But to get to this financial part, this thing happened with my ex, have a baby. And then I'm like, I need to go back to work. I need to go back to work. And I start getting this calling to go back to work. I started Golden Otter as like a hobby. And this was the joke I was going to tell you earlier. My podcast producer, who like professionally produces this now, he listened to I unlocked one of my episodes, and he listened to my very first one. He goes, Autumn, it sounds like you're running from wolves. And why are you breathing so hard in this? And I was like, oh, well, it was live. He's like, what? And I go, yeah, it's live. I was like, it was a radio. And I was live on air. And he's like, your first ever podcast you did live on air. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, that's so you. And I was like, that's so you. I was like, I know it's terrible, but I'm like, I'm the type that you ask me, how am I doing all this? And I'm just like, cannonball, right? I don't know. None of us know how we're getting home. We just figure it out as we go. But, so all that to say, I got the job with you. And I think that, the reason he let me take that job was one, the cost of living in DC was really high. And two, I think it elevated his position to be able to say, my wife is an Army historian at CMH. And so it was only ever anything that elevated his status that was deemed worthy. So like when Golden Otter, when I was doing it at first, he was like, oh yeah, honey, that's cool. But then I actually started to get really into it, and I could never quite figure out how to turn the dial of like making it a career or getting paid for it, because it was just a hobby. And I couldn't, I was learning, but I was totally self-taught, and so was everybody else.
Right.
So that's why like now people are like, oh, I podcast. I'm like, I've actually been doing this for 10 years. And besides not knowing how to like hook up this new audio stuff that we got, this part's the easy, the fun, and it's real and it's authentic.
Right.
And in the digital age, like we went from like nobody doing anything remote digital to now we're so far past it. We're in the age of AI. It happened like that. And I'm all of a sudden an anachronism, because I can hold a real conversation with real people and have actual things to talk about, because I really did that.
Right.
So, and like I think about the curriculum at CMH all the time. Like in the era of ChatGPT, I would have been out of a job.
Oh, yeah.
You guys were just taking it as Villard stuff and boop, 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 boop. Done.
Right.
So think about that. Like that job was such a runway for me. Wow. And if it just been a few years later, that's scary. But it takes me back to financial independence. And I loved that job and I needed that job. And every penny that I earned from it, I was able to, put into things that were for the kids, or for me. And I'd never had that really before, because it's always like, what are you spending? How are you funding it? So it gave me like leeway, gave us the opportunity to put the kids in like ballet or whatever. And it gave me the opportunity to build out Golden Otter. Like I trademarked my own company.
Right.
Yeah. And I went down to the USPTO, and I learned so much in it. And if I hadn't had my CMH job to off-put, to use those costs. But yeah, so what I would do is I almost wonder if HR can put out some sort of like just any HR company, right? Some sort of like financial wellness, or like, are you financially safe? Because my sister-in-law was financially solvent. She always kept a separate account. I never did. We merged assets the day we got married, and because there were no assets. And now here we are, and you just found out I'm being charged with 2 criminal misdemeanors for the same thing, which was paying my light bill.
Right.
Dirty me. And it goes back to the financial control. So it's like everything in this just self-reveals. Like it reveals itself more and more and more as I think the number one thing that we can do to help victims of domestic violence in any situation is make sure that they have a path towards financial independence. Because once they do, a lot of the problems resolve. And I work with the Free From is the name of their organization. So like Free From Domestic Violence, and not Freeform, because that's a TV show, but Free From Domestic Violence, freefrom.org. and they advocate for financial literacy and financial independence for survivors and just for any woman. And that's the path forward. And when I was living in Africa, I was doing these micro grants for women, like $100. And yeah. And like, I really saw that was another way. So
I remember you telling me about those.
yeah. And it's like, and you know, I hate to be like, hey, this is what we need to do for women and not men. But you know, the odds are that most of the time it's women whose finances are being controlled. So, all right. But don't, that's so sweet of you. I can't believe you actually thought that.
Oh,
Sweet.
yeah.
Appreciate that. I thought you were going to ask me something really intense, and I was like, oh gosh, here we go. But you more or less just said to me the same thing that my OBGYN said to me when I finally was like able to be like, okay, so these injuries are, you know, he's like, yeah, I know they're not like child related. Like we're a year out. You can't keep saying that shit. I'm like, let's go with that. And he's like, I'm a doctor, not an idiot. And he goes, you know, it's always the girls like you. The ones we least suspect, the ones who have it all together. Everything's always perfect. You send the thank you cards, you send the thank you baskets. Right. You know, he delivered my baby. I sent this big Alaskan, you know, bouquet of goodies. And it's because we're used to putting on a pretty face. So that's actually who I would tell you to look out for the most. The ones who are like overcompensating, you know? So, all right, let's move on from that. What else we want to talk about?
For sure.
Where do you think this is going for me?
I hope.
I hope staying alive.
Yeah. Exactly.
Best case, just do this. Best case, worst case.
First off, I've sent you a few postcards. What I hope for you is a steady address where I can send postcards. Right? Because right now, I don't know, send the postcards. That's the hope, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, past that,
sky's the limit.
yeah, yeah.
I know that's actually really sweet. Gee, I sent you a text the other day, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
So
I'm like, oh,
I have some of them I've kept, some of them have disappeared or like have gotten put in a book. You know what I mean? No, I keep all of them. Like the possum and some of them were on my fridge during the hardest year of my life. I mean, it's been the hardest 2 years, but like going back and seeing what made it with me to where I live now. Yeah. And like, I do have a house. Have I told you that I haven't, off camera, but like,
sure.
I have a house. Good. I've got land. I'm settled. I've got a beautiful place, at least till May.
There you go.
At least till May, I'm like set that, you know, everything is ready because I've been making a plan to get my kids. And when my children come back into my life, I want to have like a fully functioning life for them to walk into. That's not like mom's still trying to figure out. It's like, hey guys, here's mom's house. Like, yeah, I've just been like decorating your room. Like Eisenhower, you've got a big theme and Ellie, and like actually this wallpaper that's up, I went with a similar company. I did my laundry room and
this is cool.
It is cool, right? It's a very photo-y thing.
Yeah, but that's very loud. But it's, you know.
Yeah, but no, I'm settled, and I found a place where I intend to be long term, and it's a good place for the kids. And I'm hoping that, you know, I'm hoping that the next chapter is one where, gosh, I can't even, like, I don't know what it looks like, because in domestic violence, when your perpetrator refuses to take responsibility for the crimes that they've committed or the harm that they caused. So it's called it, like, so you're going to be as like nice about it as possible. You go like, well, my harm doer. And it's like, okay, my harm doer. But in order for there to be healing, they have to take accountability for what they've done. And there's no universe that exists so far where that happens. Now, is the public shaming of all of this going to be the thing that does it? Hopefully, but at the same time, the number of times he's tried to silence me, and it's like, I just don't know. Like on a personal level, I don't know. On a professional level, I know exactly where this is going, and it's DOD, DOJ. Yeah, here we go.
All right.
And we're back. It was a very long break, but we actually got it hot mic'd. I have to edit out me peeing, but that's all right.
People will pay extra for that, I hear.
That's on the Trebuchet files that you can get by clinking all these places. Which so to wrap this up, how we started, you said, how could you have ever like known or done anything? And honestly, at the time, there was nothing you could have done. There was no way. I was just at the very beginning of even understanding what was going on in my marriage. And, just honestly having that job was such a lifesaver. And it gave me the opportunity to have dignity. And as we were just talking about, it gave me like a chaff. Like, I was like, well, I didn't fight with anybody at CNH, and I didn't get in trouble at CNH. And like, and I've always maintained my career. It goes back to what my doctor said. He's like, well, have you had an upper stroke? I was like, yeah. And then, do you remember when I gave that presentation in front of all those superintendents in DC? And who did I go with? Mike DeWitt. Was that?
Yeah, I think so.
Was it Mike or Mike DeYoung? Mike
DeYoung, yeah.
DeYoung. I combined Dwight. Anyways, he goes, he brings me up there and he goes, it's not very often that you have a military spouse, and he's kind of writing, that maintains this type of a career. And here she is giving a speech in front of whatever. And he goes, so she was a military kid, because I was. And he goes, and now he's military spouse. So that's how we know how important these like DODIA programs are. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, wow. Like, and then I gave my speech and I was like, wow, I did. I gave this speech in front of 60 superintendents in DODIA schools. So it gave me such an out and the ability to know that I'd be able to be financially independent. And then we talked about just having access to your own resources.
Right.
It's so vital.
And that financial literacy.
Yeah. Like, it's not like, how are you going to spend your money? It's, do you feel safe spending money? Do you have a plan for where you're going to keep your money? And yeah, like financial literacy for especially female employees, but all employees. Who knows? Maybe we're going to a universal basic income, and but we do need to compensate all work. So like domestic work is work, and we wouldn't have functioning families and homes if we didn't have primary caregiver or childcare systems at work. So
right,
how do you want to take this thing home? How do you want to land this plane? I'm gonna have to come back to DC once a year, and do a follow-up interview.
Absolutely.
How's your greeting card company coming on?
Zero. It is. But
you're still doing it.
It rattles around in my head, right? But I'm doing it rattling around in my head. I just don't have the time to sit down and actually put electrons into paper.
Yeah,
literally paper. To order all the electrons and get all that set up. It takes some working capital that I don't have, and more. It just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
The job I'm in right now is 40 plus hours a week.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, you hear about and you see, and I meet people not unlike yourself and Sauce over there. She's the boss. And we've got Sauce. You can edit that out too. Who can go 24/7,
yeah,
and put all this together. And you read the Hamilton book, or you see the play.
Yeah,
and Alexander Hamilton is like, "Why do you write like you're running out of time?" Right? I can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
I'm slowing down.
Yeah,
and by the time I'm done, with work, I go downstairs and I make dinner. Some of the time, most of the time, and I'm tired. Right?
You're tired. What's the name of the company?
It will be, God, it's not,
like notes from something.
Yeah. Words in the Mail.
Words in the Mail.
Words in the Mail.
That's it. Words in the Mail. You always have been and always will be my number one Christmas card that I always look forward to every year. I wish, so I didn't get to keep, I didn't get anything from my house. So that's what I told you. I don't have all the cards that you sent because some of them, I lost them. I didn't even have my own diploma. I don't have my diploma. He kept my Halloween costumes. You know, I'm like, can I have my rugby stuff from college? I'm like, can I have like my mom's heirlooms? I'm like, can I have my stuff? But apparently not. But point of the story is I lost a lot of those. So do you keep those, by the way?
Oh,
do you have like a...
Yeah.
I'm going to need that.
I will.
I'm going to need... I don't know why I didn't think of that. I'm like, I don't have some of the years. Someday I'm going to do that. I'm just going to like read these, like read their Christmas. That's what you should do. Just like a channel. Like just read like every year and put it...
Have
you done that?
I've thought about it. Yeah, that is actually sort of on the to-do list.
Because that's like
put together a YouTube of just me reading stories.
Yeah, that's funny. That's how
it should be, and theoretically it'll be funny.
Well, I mean, just the fact that you've done it all these years, and like as a father, I just think that that's something. And you and I always like off camera. Off camera, like in our regular life. I'm like, how are the kids? What's going on with them? And I've been checking in on your adult kids for 10 years. You've been checking on me and my kids for 10 years. And it's just such a, cool relationship, but it just makes me so happy. And I'll probably be here in DC more often. And so,
good.
If they come for me and they're not very happy, I'm going to be like, I'm actually not going to tell them that you're the one. I'm going to be like, it's all me. I falsified my credentials. None of it's real. It's all fake. I would never. All right. Well, thank you for being here, Dad.
Amazing.
And I feel so lucky and so honored, and it's guys like you that have helped get me here so that I can bring all those ladies in.
Get them.
Thank you. All right, that's now his walk off. I'm gonna C-Ray, give us a talk off music. That's what my podcast producer, when we were going into court all the time, he's like, you need walk on music. I'm like, I was just like, get in there. And I'm like, yeah. And then we go in there and just get our ass handed. And I'm like, oh my God. He's like, okay, we need to work on your walk on. But
there you go.
All right, wrap.
All right.